Stop scrolling right now, because what I'm about to tell you sounds unbelievable until you hear how it ends. I never planned to fight my HOA president, let alone expose her in court. But the moment she tried to strong-arm me, everything changed. This is the story of how an HOA Karen thought fear would make me fold, and how a judge later called her actions exactly what they were: extortion. It started on a quiet Monday morning. I was pulling my trash bins back inside when a white SUV stopped abruptly in front of my driveway. Out stepped the HOA president, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, confidence overflowing. She didn't greet me. She didn't smile. She walked straight up and said, "We need to talk. Now." The tone alone told me this wasn't a friendly chat. She claimed my home violated new community guidelines, new rules I'd never received, new fines that appeared out of nowhere. She pointed at my house, my fence, even my security camera, listing penalties like she was reading a grocery list. Then came the threat. If I didn't comply immediately, she said the fines would double every week, miss enough payments, and the HOA could place a lien on my home. I asked for the paperwork. She waved it off. I asked for time. She laughed. Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "There is a way to make this go away," she said. That was the moment my stomach dropped. She suggested a private payment, off the books, made directly to the HOA board. No receipt, no record, just cash. I refused. Her smile vanished. She warned me I was making a very expensive mistake. As she walked away, she promised inspectors, lawyers, and endless fines. Standing in my driveway, I felt angry, nervous, and confused. But something inside me said this wasn't right. So instead of paying, I started documenting everything. And that decision would change everything. That night I barely slept, replaying every word she said and every threat she implied. I pulled out old emails, HOA notices, and bank statements, realizing how carefully she avoided written communication. The more I reviewed, the clearer it became that this wasn't enforcement, it was intimidation. I wasn't the first homeowner she approached like this, and I suspected I wouldn't be the last. Fear was her favorite tool, and silence was her shield. I decided then that if she wanted a fight, it would be one fought in daylight, with records, witnesses, and the truth on my side. I opened a notebook, wrote the date, the time, her exact words, and promised myself I would not let bullying decide my future anymore ever. The next morning, I didn't call a lawyer or confront her directly. Instead, I did something far more dangerous to someone like her. I started asking questions, quiet ones. I spoke to my neighbors, casually at first, then more deliberately. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. I wasn't alone, and I wasn't imagining things. One neighbor told me she'd paid thousands in expedited compliance fees just to stop constant citations. Another admitted she was threatened with foreclosure over a paint color approved years earlier. Every story followed the same pattern: sudden violations, escalating fines, private conversations, cash suggested, paperwork avoided, fear exploited. Armed with this, I sent a certified letter to the HOA requesting formal documentation of my alleged violations. No emotion, just facts. The response came fast and it was explosive. Instead of paperwork, I received a notice of immediate fines, penalties, and legal action. It was retaliation, plain and simple. Then the HOA Karen showed up again, this time with another board member. She smiled like this was a friendly visit, but her words were razor sharp. She said the board was willing to be flexible if I showed good faith. When I asked what that meant, she named a number. 5 figures, paid quietly. No dispute, no hearing. That's when I told her I was recording the conversation. Her smile froze. She demanded I stop. I didn't. She stormed off, shouting that I'd regret this and that the HOA's lawyers would crush me. Instead of backing down, I filed a formal complaint and hired an attorney specializing in HOA abuse cases. My lawyer listened calmly as I explained everything. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "This isn't enforcement. This is extortion." Hearing that word out loud felt surreal. He explained how HOAs often rely on intimidation, assuming homeowners won't fight back. But he also explained something else. Judges don't like bullies. We gathered evidence, emails, audio recordings, neighbor statements, financial inconsistencies in HOA records, patterns that showed selective enforcement and personal enrichment. The deeper we dug, the uglier it became. Money missing, rules applied only to certain homeowners, a trail that led straight to the president. Soon after, the HOA filed a lawsuit against me, claiming unpaid fines and violations. It was exactly what my lawyer expected. He smiled when he read it. "Perfect," he said. "Now we get discovery." What she thought was a threat had just become her biggest mistake. Court day arrived faster than I expected. And the moment I walked into that courtroom, the power dynamic shifted. HOA Karen wasn't in charge anymore. There were no clipboards, no private threats, no hallway whispers. Just a judge, a court reporter, and the truth about to be dragged into the open. She sat across the room with her attorney, looking confident, almost bored. When the judge asked her lawyer to summarize the case, it sounded clean and professional. Alleged violations, unpaid fines, community standards. On paper, it looked routine. That was the illusion she relied on. Then it was our turn. My attorney didn't argue. He presented evidence. He played audio recordings of her, suggesting private solutions. He submitted neighbor affidavits describing identical threats and cash demands. He introduced HOA financial records showing unexplained withdrawals that coincided with compliance settlements. With every document, the judge's expression changed. HOA Karen shifted in her seat. Her lawyer objected repeatedly, but the judge overruled each one. When asked to explain the off-the-books payments, she stumbled. When asked why no receipts existed, she blamed administrative errors. When asked why violations appeared only after homeowners refused to pay quietly, she had no answer. The turning point came when the judge asked her a simple question. Why did you discourage written communication? She paused too long. The silence was deafening. Her response didn't matter anymore. The judge leaned forward and said words I'll never forget. This court is not here to legitimize intimidation. He explained, slowly and clearly, how threatening financial harm to extract unrecorded payments met the legal definition of extortion. Not poor management, not misunderstanding, extortion. Her attorney tried to salvage the case, but it was over. The HOA lawsuit was dismissed. Then something unexpected happened. The judge ordered a referral for further investigation into the HOA's finances and leadership conduct. HOA Karen's confidence shattered instantly. She avoided eye contact, her hands shaking. Outside the courtroom, neighbors who had been too afraid to speak hugged me. Some cried. They told me they finally felt safe. The bully had lost her shield. Fear no longer protected her. But the story didn't end with that ruling. Because once the legal system opened the door, consequences followed quickly. What happened next went far beyond my case and sent shockwaves through the entire community. The weeks after the ruling felt unreal, like the calm after a storm that had been brewing for years. The judge's words didn't just end my case. They cracked the foundation of the entire HOA. Once the investigation began, everything HOA Karen tried to hide started coming into the light. Auditors combed through years of financial records. What they found confirmed what many of us suspected but were too afraid to say out loud. Missing funds, unapproved expenses, payments that never appeared in official ledgers, money collected in the name of the community, then quietly redirected elsewhere. Each discovery tightened the net around her. The HOA board scrambled. Emergency meetings were called. Emails went out assuring residents that everything was under control, but control was gone. Neighbors who had stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices. Complaints flooded in. Former board members came forward with stories of pressure, manipulation, and being pushed aside when they asked questions. Then came the resignation. HOA Karen stepped down for personal reasons, according to the announcement. No apology, no explanation, just a carefully worded statement that fooled no one. Within days, law enforcement interviews followed. Subpoenas were issued. The intimidation that once ruled our neighborhood evaporated overnight. For me, the relief was overwhelming. The lien threats vanished. The fines were erased. My legal fees were ordered reimbursed. But more important than the money was the shift in power. The fear that kept everyone in line was broken. Homeowners started attending meetings again. Rules were rewritten with transparency. Financial reports became public. Accountability replaced silence. One evening, a neighbor knocked on my door. She told me she'd been on the verge of selling her home because she couldn't afford the constant fines. She thanked me for standing up when no one else could. That moment made every sleepless night worth it. I learned something through all of this. Bullies rely on isolation. They thrive when you feel alone, overwhelmed, and afraid of consequences. But when you document, ask questions, and refuse to be intimidated, their power fades fast. HOAs exist to manage communities, not to terrorize them for personal gain. If there's one lesson this story leaves behind, it's this. Authority without accountability is dangerous. Whether it's an HOA president, a board, or anyone claiming power over your life, the rules apply to them too. And sometimes all it takes is one person saying no for the whole system to collapse. What started as a quiet threat in my driveway ended with a judge calling it exactly what it was, extortion. And once spoken aloud in a courtroom, that word changed everything forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more wild HOA and Karen battles, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if you faced a situation like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update.